But hopefully there'll be a few things of interest to you. So, as was mentioned earlier, I'm Kristian Schnack. I'm one of the export advisors that Enterprise Estonia has in Germany, and I've been doing this for 2 years now. And I'd like to talk a little bit about labeling and packaging considerations in Germany. Now, some of these considerations may be familiar to you because they're the same in Estonia. As you know, many regulations, labeling and packaging regulations, are regulated by the European Union, by different directives in the European Union. But Germany, being Germany, also has another 260 rules of its own, not all of which we will look at today. So, just a little bit about what we actually do at EAS at Enterprise Estonia. Myself and my colleague Tina, who you met earlier this morning, we basically offer two types of services. One is called a basic inquiry service or a pre-consulting service where we would provide straightforward lists, straightforward information, market reports, whatever. That's a service that might take a couple of hours or 3 or 4 hours. And we then have the in-depth export partner search service where, on your behalf, we draw up long lists and then short lists of potential business partners for you in Germany. We look at those partners, we get the contact data, and then also on your behalf, we contact those companies to find out whether they're interested in having a meeting with you, whether they're interested in looking at your product more specifically. That's a fee service because that's a fairly in-depth type of service. The other thing we do, Tina and myself, is we go to commercial agents fairs. Now, a lot of business in Germany is run via commercial agents who have the networks into the different buyers. And we represent Estonian companies at these fairs. Note, please, that the next fair is in Düsseldorf on Monday, December 5th. I will be going to that. So if any of you have last-minute offers that you would like to give to me, come and get my card and then send me an email so that you're also on the list of companies looking for partners or buyers in Germany. These are quite good contact points because these people are specifically buyers who are looking for new products. Now, as was discussed, the German market is huge but incredibly complex and quite difficult to penetrate. Very, very different from Finland or Sweden in terms of complexity. One of the key questions you have to ask yourself is whether you'd like to enter the market either under your own label or private label. And of course, there's benefits and disadvantages to both approaches. Obviously, building a brand takes a lot more effort and more expense. For others, a private label might be the better option to get your feet wet in the German market, so to speak. The advantage, of course, with private label is that the buyer then takes over the whole process of packaging and the regulatory issues, etc. Consumer trends. Germany is very, very health conscious, increasingly so, but is also very price conscious. I say that. At the same time, Germans are also prepared to pay for quality. So if the price-quality ratio looks good in the consumer's eyes, then they will pay money. As we saw earlier with Diana's presentation, where German consumers are prepared to pay a lot more for organic products than for conventional products. Please note that grocery prices in Germany are incredibly low. We have the lowest grocery prices in the whole of Europe, very much due to the size of the market, the extreme competition, and the very efficient logistics network in Germany. It was mentioned earlier that the discounters have a very large percent. Aldi and Lidl, I think almost 38% or 36%. But the retail sector, or the other retailers, are also aware that they need to differentiate themselves from the discounters. So retailers such as Rewe and Edeka, who were mentioned earlier today, are looking for new and innovative products. They constantly want to be able to offer their customers something new, something different, something innovative. So new food concepts are actively being sought by Germany's category managers. Okay. Now, this chart we're not going to spend a lot of time on, but you can have a look at it at your own leisure. Oh, by the way, I should add that all the PowerPoint presentations will be available And Mari will send you an email asking whether you want them or where you can download them. Okay? This is interesting in the sense that it actually is a matrix where we look at the service level and also, can't see it from here, the price level of different supermarkets in Germany. And you can see that Rewe and Edeka are in this level where service is relatively high, but also the price is a little higher. Kaufhof Karstadt, something special here, quite high priced. And with the major discounters over here, Aldi North, Aldi South, Lidl. So I think it also depends really on where you see yourself in terms of your product. Where do you think you might want to be in that quadrant? 3 claims in Germany. No additives, preservatives, whole grain and organic. We'll come back to some of this. Germans are very excited about these topics, and also the increasing penetration of vegetarian products. And I'll show you a graph in a little while of how the vegetarian market is developing. The other thing is that German consumers are also looking increasingly for convenience and for packaged products that have a longer shelf life. Shelf life requirements vary strongly depending on the category, etc. But longer shelf life, as I mentioned, is preserved and explains the predominance of frozen versus chilled products in many product categories. Compared to the United Kingdom, for example, Germany is underdeveloped, not as well developed in terms of chilled product ranges. For example, if you go to the UK, products as sandwiches and ready meals and things like that are far more developed in the United Kingdom than in Germany. But it is changing in Germany also because the proportion of single households in Germany is reaching an all-time high. So there we go, single households, smaller portions if you like, and easy to prepare meals. The other thing about the shelf, the shelf units is the size of the display units, okay? The smaller the unit, the greater the chance of successful and wide distribution. Shelf-ready packaging is becoming more and more a prerequisite in Germany. And that's one of the reasons we're going to look at some of the labeling requirements and the packaging requirements that might help you actually prepare for shelf-ready packaging for Germany. Now, let's go to German food law. Germany is the country of laws. In fact, the European Taxpayer Federation said that the annual changes in Germany's laws, just the annual changes to Germany's laws are the same as the whole Estonian law code. So you can tell, we love laws in Germany. Yeah? And so we have 230 different ordinances that relate to food and beverage only. We won't go into all of them today. So you have quite a few, the food labeling ordinance, the packaging ordinance, dietetic foods, special product groups, etc. To make it more challenging for you, the provisions of the food law might be interpreted differently by different courts because the interpretation is on state level, whereas the law is federal, interpretation is state level, and not every state has the same view on the implementation of federal legislation. Okay, now here's a very, very important point. Who has responsibility in Germany? Who has liability? The importer does, okay? German law enforcement agencies hold the German importers solely responsible for any violations of the food law, since they cannot take action against foreign producers. Violations of the food law by the importer constitute a punishment that a minor infraction of the food law may be tolerated in one state, but not another. That makes it all a little complicated sometimes. The government does sample. There's government laboratories. They will sample foods to see that the contents and the nutritional analysis is correct. And the worst thing that can happen is if your product violates food law because the government doesn't have a problem releasing this to the press. And then you come into the press with your brand name, or the importer comes into the press, or you as the manufacturer. Not good for anybody. Now, the one thing we don't have in Germany, and somebody asked me this question earlier, we don't have an agency that could answer all these questions. It would be nice if we had one agency that would tell you all about the food laws, registration, review, product clearance, approval, etc. We don't have that. We have many different agencies. Please note as well that German inspection agencies at the point of entry into the country, can actually ask the importer to arrange for further inspection of the product. And one thing German importers do, and German companies do as well, is they often use the assistance of officially certified commercial food chemists. For example, the Fresenius Institute. There's quite a few of these who will actually test your products for you and make sure that they conform with German standards and German law. General requirements, all foods, please, must be labeled in German. Multi-language labels are fine. In fact, if you're thinking of expanding to other markets as well, you might want to make your label multi-language right away. French, German, Dutch, Swedish. Labeling can also have illustrations, but be careful, do not show anything on the label that's not actually in the product, okay? So don't show fruit if you're using artificial flavors, for example. That's not well regarded in Germany. There's plenty of other little labeling requirements that are EU and Germany determined, which is the size of the letters and things like that. But normally, your importer will be able to help you with some of these issues as well. Now, some importers might agree to put a computer-generated adhesive label on the product, especially if you're doing a test run or small quantities. It's not the best approach if you can avoid it. It doesn't look good. We'll see some examples. Especially if you have a high-value good. Don't have a high-value good and stick a cheap computer label on it, okay? Maybe try and make the label in the same colors. For example, this one here, I think this looks awful myself. This is an American chocolate sauce which is being imported into Germany. You know, the label doesn't fit, it's obscured, it looks like somebody just stuck it on there, which they did, of course. You know, if you're trying to enter the market, the packaging and the image is part of the product entry, you know, and it's a shame to sort of mess it up with a label like that, I think. And you know, not only that, but most of them had a little curling edge, you know, which I wasn't sure if it's by mistake. I tried to rip it off, but that didn't work either. So. Okay. Here, this is actually a tiny, tiny confectionery. This is Reese's. Reese's are trying to get into the German market. This is an American confectionery. The package is small. It's about this small. It's like 2 business cards together. And then they stick this label on it, which nobody can read. You can only read it now because I made it so big. And it's very, very hard to read. And I'll come back. Now, here's another interesting thing. Please note, on labels, you will almost always find the name of the importer. This could be useful market intelligence for you. Here, we can see Vertrieb, distributor, is a company called the rollingstore.de. And all they have is a mobile number. The website doesn't exist. I looked it up the other day, okay? Not good. Maybe work with somebody else. Here's another one. This is a more established importer, by the way, Hanseatic Modern Food in Hamburg. Again, their label is a little better, but not much. This is an example of how German trends are changing. This is Indian cooking sauces. These are becoming very popular in Germany and are being imported from the UK. Nice as well is that they also translated the little recipe at the back. Well, it's not a recipe, it's just how to make it, you know, but it's nice that this has been included as well. Again, it would have been nicer to have had that in the same colors as the rest of the packaging. Right, general requirements. We talked about the labeling in Germany. You have to name the product as it's commonly used in the trade, in the business, okay? You might have a fantasy name, but you still need to have a name what it's about. Going back to our chocolate syrup here, you see here, Schokoladensirup. Okay? They've told you exactly what it is. Minimum shelf life. Normally, they're all together. They need to be visible. We say here in the same field of vision, you should have the product name, the statement of quantity, and the indication of minimum shelf life, or a reference to it. So here we have an example, mindestens halber bis, and here we have the amount, and somewhere else here we would have the name of the product. Or it sometimes says to the minimum date, please see the top lid or the plastic packaging. List of ingredients and food additives. This could be the same as in Estonia, I'm not sure, but you start the list of ingredients with the German word Zutaten, and then you list the ingredients in descending order of weight as used at time of preparation. This is important. Ingredients used in concentrated or dehydrated form can be listed as if reconstituted, and certain ingredients may be designated by the name of their category group rather than the specific name. Some examples here: refined vegetable oils, refined fats, flour blends, fish, cheese, spices. You don't need to be specific about each element in these groups. Here's a good example of a label. So here we have Zutaten, ingredients. Here we have grains, Getreide, at 39.8, and then they put in brackets 39.8% whole wheat flour, 39.8% whole wheat flour, but also rice flour. Then 21.8% dried fruit, raisins, pineapple, papaya, and coconut, etc. Very important point, apart from, these have to be listed as well, by the way, all the additives you stick in there, all the different E's. Very important is this one here, allergens, must be listed on the product. If you don't list the allergens and somebody has a heart attack because of your product, then it's not good, you know. Quantitative ingredient declaration. Now, if you place a special emphasis on an ingredient because you think it will sell better, which Nestle likes to do with their cereals, you can tell what we eat at home by these pictures, you know. This is my daughter's favorite here. But here we go. Nestle's doing advertising that it's 44% whole grains, okay? Then that must be declared near the name of the company, the product, and also the percentage, which Nestle's doing here. Nestle also invented this happy, positive grains logo as well for their products. I think this is straightforward. Alcoholic beverages containing more than 1.2% alcohol need to be shown as alcohol or alcohol by volume. Let's go back to the minimum shelf life date. The words to be used are mindestens haltbar bis. You can see that down here. The determination of the minimum shelf life is your responsibility. You will have an idea of how long your product will last, okay? Not necessary for fresh fruits and vegetables, alcoholic beverages of more than 10% alcohol, portioned ice cream, table salt, crystal sugar, etc. Now, it can go a little silly here. This is an interesting one. This is Himalayan, this is crystal salt from the Himalayas, from the foothills of the Himalayas. Here in the advertising it says Himalaya salt is gathered at the foothills of the Himalayas and is 250 million years old. And here it says, mindestens haltbar bis 30th of October 2018. Well, it seems to be a bit of an anomaly there. Now, if you have fresh products such as meats, of course, there's also a latest use date or latest consumption date. And you need to cover yourself by saying that as well. So here we have instructions on how to store it, maximum 2 degrees, and to be consumed or cooked by the 8th of January 2012. Very important for products that are microbiologically sensitive and might go bad. Again, as I said, you know, this is a great opportunity. If you go to a German supermarket and you find products that are similar, you find your product category, check on the back who's importing it, Hanseatic Modern Food. Here's one of the better known importers, CMC, the food company in Mülheim an der Ruhr. Health claims. The German government is very tough on claims that specifically say that a foodstuff can treat or cure a human disease. There have been many cases recently. But again, the courts are in different minds sometimes. You know, some claims are clearly not allowable, but this one here is a Brennnessel. What are Brennnessel in English again? Stinging nettle, thank you. Stinging nettle green tea, and it says detox, okay? So what is detox? Is it a medical thing, or is it a general thing of well-being? So here are all the different courts. They said verboten, verboten. This is one of my favorite words in German anyway, verboten. Yeah. But here, allowed, right? And here, now so, some people say here in this case that detox is a very specific health-related claim. But these guys say, no, it's a very vague lifestyle claim, all right? It doesn't say anything. There's no direct health connection, so it's not misleading, right? So you can see that the courts sometimes look at these things differently. I think the thing to do if you get into trouble, find the right court, maybe. Okay, dietetic food law defines the properties that foods must have in order for the manufacturer to label them as dietetic. It requires that there's a substantial difference from regular foods. This area is difficult, and I would strongly recommend that you work with a German food laboratory. If you're making anything anything that you consider a diet food, it's all probably best to work with a German laboratory and get everything checked. Packaging waste recycling. Now this will be known to most of you because it started off as a German symbol in 1991, I think, and it's become a European-wide symbol. This is the German Packaging and Waste Avoidance Law, which requires importers of consumer products to enter into a contract for the recycling of the packaging. Traditionally, German industry has been using the grüne Punkt, the green dot, excuse me, to assure that the packaging material will be recycled. In the meantime, it's become international and was adopted by the EU in 1997. It's not mandatory to print on packaging, but I would recommend it. It just gives that little extra for the consumer. The consumer likes to see that something's recyclable. If you put the green dot on it, it gives them that assurance. There's a lot of recycling that takes place in Germany, so it's something to consider. And there's a very small license fee that needs to be paid if you want to use the green dot. And you can see that some companies in other countries are also using it. Are any of you using it, the green dot symbol, logo? No? This is United Kingdom, for example. I've also seen it on French products, on others, right? And if you're going to print a label, you might as well stick it in there and pay the license fee because, as I say, it's not a big fee, and it reassures consumers in countries like Germany and the Netherlands, Denmark. We also have a mandatory deposit system for one-way beverages, so we all collect our empty cans and our empty mineral water bottles and Coke bottles. In Germany, they're worth 25 cents each. This was introduced in 2006, and I want to give you some examples of how importers are using. This is the symbol here, and this is, for example, here's an importer. This is Canadian beer that's imported into Germany that has the symbol here. And here's another one, and this, you can see it over here. Now this is an interesting one because here the importer has his own special labels. He's importing quite a lot of beers, but I'm afraid I don't have the front label. The front label is the classic American label for this beer, but the back label is determined by the importer. He said he's brewed it from the United States. It's also got the ingredients, as you should have, but it also has the recycling symbol over there. Now, it doesn't apply to everything. So if you're a juice manufacturer, fruit and vegetable juices, or you're doing milk drinks or milk mix, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry drinks, etc., or you're doing special dietetic drinks, certain types of spirits and wines, they don't apply. They get thrown back into the system. Multi-layer cartons, interesting. I wasn't aware of this, but we looked into it. Multi-layer carton packages are regarded to be the least environmentally disturbing, so they don't need it either. Those products have this symbol, okay? So you either have the recycling symbol we just looked at, this one over here, yeah, where the people bring it back to the supermarket and you get your 25 cents. or this symbol over here if it's a throwaway product. Vitamin-enriched foods, if you're going to do that, it has to be listed immediately next to the trade name of the product. Vitamin-enriched is quite popular in some areas in Germany, and this one here, you can see this soy milk here has been enriched with calcium and vitamin B2 and B12. Has to be on the front, has to be visible. The other thing about vitamins or vitamin-enriched is the German authorities don't want to see more than 3 times the recommended daily allowance. So if you're going to add vitamins to your products, make sure they don't exceed 3 times the recommended daily allowance for that vitamin or that mineral. Excuse me. So we already found out that German retailers demand a high level of safety, and we have a number of accreditations and certificates. Some of them are mandatory. Kevin spoke about the IFS certificate earlier, which is a must for a lot of buyers in Germany. Without it, you don't get anywhere. Or in some cases, the BRC, which is an equivalent. Those are the mandatory, and those are certificates you need for the buyers, not so much for the consumer. The consumer won't know whether you have IFS or not. It's the buyers who look at whether you have IFS. Other certificates or accreditations are optional. For example, the German Biosiegel or organic mark, which some of you are familiar with. That's its European equivalent. Definitely put it on. If your product meets the requirements, of the bio regulations or organic regulations, it's certainly worth putting on. At the moment, we have 5,000 German companies with 75,000 products who have officially declared themselves organic and have that logo on their product. In Germany, all the hard discounters, Aldi and Lidl, are also developing and have quite large bio or organic sections. That's big business. Yeah?
The EU label is mandatory.
Sorry?
The EU label is mandatory.
Thank you. The EU label is mandatory. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that is mandatory if you have it. Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, here we have an example from Edeka. This is Edeka's own label, or private label milk, if you like. I think there's some interesting things here. Apart from the bio label here, notice as well World Wildlife Fund. Notice as well FSC. All voluntary stuff. They're sticking it on there for the market. Buy Edeka milk and you're helping the World Wildlife Fund. You feel good as well. And what they're saying here is that the packaging conforms to Forestry Stewardship Council, FSC, Forestry Stewardship Council things. If you can do those things, put them on there, because Germans love this kind of feeling that not only are they buying a product, but they're doing the environment good as well. UTZ or UTZ certification, depending on where you come from. Coffee, tea, and cocoa. This is quite popular. You don't need to use it, but German companies do. This is another Edeka product where it's UTZ certified cocoa. This is not from Germany, but I like it, so I put it in here. This is the official military chocolate of the Swiss Army. Yeah, but UTZ certified, right? So you can eat it safely and be happy that the environment. Now, UTZ is an organization that ensures that products or that raw resources like cocoa, tea, and coffee are made under fair labor conditions and practices. Again, you know, you're supporting things. Again, more examples of UTZ certification. In this case, for coffee pads from Rewe. And here, a brand label, Rooibos tea, again, UTZ. Now, let's get on to, just briefly onto vegetarian products. This is an interesting field. I was at a seminar a few weeks ago on the vegetarian issue and what can be considered vegetarian, what can be considered vegan, what if something creeps in from an animal in some ingredient or product. I think the main thing to be said is that the vegetarian market in Germany is expanding enormously. And many companies are riding on this wave by producing vegetarian products, schnitzels and bratwurst and stuff. And here's the problem. There's two opinions in Germany. When is a schnitzel not a schnitzel? Now, there are a group of people who say you shouldn't call it a schnitzel unless it's made of meat. And yet the other group is saying, and the other group includes, this is a very famous manufacturer in Germany, are saying, oh, wait a second, you know, it's a meat replacement. What are we replacing? We're replacing your meat schnitzel with a vegetarian schnitzel. That's what the people are used to. They're used to cooking with a schnitzel or a little bratwurst or something like that. So it's a big discussion right now about to what extent this is all. This is the vegetarian logo. Do you know if it's mandatory, Diana, or not?
It's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory, yeah? It's voluntary, but you have to meet the code that's being served. Okay, so here's a, we'll come back to these logos in a second. Very important, normally the standard is green packaging to indicate environmentally friendly, excuse me. It's mandatory to have a clear window or clear packaging. The consumer must be able to see the product, okay? So you see we have a window here for the product, and the other side is transparent too. As I said, the vegetarian logo, and in this case, and this cannot hurt, they had it tested by the Fresenius Institute, which is one of those food chemistry testing companies in Germany. Gives additional peace of mind and security to the consumer. And, important, it stresses fleischfrei, right? And there are people who say, what I would highly recommend you do is go to trade shows. Biofach is coming up at the end of February, is that right? Middle of February. I know there's some of you going to that. Of course, there's also the big shows, Anuga, Internorga, the IBA. For those of you in the business of manufacturing sweets, you should go there. Just go there and walk around. You get so much market intelligence about your competitors, about innovations, about packaging, pricing. You might even meet some buyers and distributors. It is worthwhile going there for a day or two and just walk around your product category to see how others are entering the market. It's always good if you're not clear about the packaging layout and you want to approach an importer right away with perfect packaging, you can always go to one of the chemical analysis institutes. For about 100 or 200 euros, they will check your packaging and make sure that it conforms to German law. The reason I'm saying this is that it makes a good impression if you enter the German market or you make first contact with German buyers and you already have a packaging that meets all the German standards, right, is ready to go, instead of having to go back and do this and redesign that, etc. All right, I'm not going to go through this actually. This is, yeah, just the one thing I think is important here, apart from the fact that a trend in the discount sector is to require manufacturers to pack up to 4 varieties of one product in one case, okay, what we call a Mischkarton, to reduce necessary space. But this is important here, okay? So if you want to enter the market via private label, then the packaging and labeling becomes the responsibility of the retailer. So in essence, if you're doing this, if you're going this route, you can ignore the whole presentation, right? You can just say, okay, it's now the responsibility of the private label retailer to package it and label it correctly. Let's talk very briefly about language and communications. I wouldn't say German retailer, yeah, German retailers like it if communication is in the German language. I mean, they speak English, and they will communicate, hopefully, with you in English too. But we found it makes a big difference. Tina, I don't know if you agree, it makes a big difference if the first approach is in German. It just, you know, it's their language. It just pops up better, it registers better, etc. Depending on the retailer, many buyers understand English. If you can, hold meetings in German, but, you know, it depends on where you're at in negotiations as well. Sometimes it's good to take a German speaker along, which both Tina and I sometimes do. We sometimes join a company at the meetings, or you might be working with a German student or a German consultant. If you really want to go the whole route before entering the market, you could also do the full chemical analysis, sensory analysis, and microbiology tests. And then you get an official document, which you might be able to use or, in fact, even need for the buyer. That's basically, in a nutshell, try to compress a lot of information into a very short presentation. You're welcome to contact me anytime. My colleague Tina is at the back. She's got lots of business cards with her, I hope. Tina's in southern Germany. She's in the Nuremberg area. I'm kind of in the middle in Frankfurt. And we work very closely together. So approach either one of us if you have any projects or inquiries or anything you'd like us to assist you with. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you very much.